Hey, good morning and welcome back to Too Ambitious. I am so happy that you all are here today. This is the almost the end of Black History Month. So, if you are joining me, I thank you for supporting Black founders, Black women in business, and let's keep the love going past February as well. Now, if you're joining me, let me know where you're joining from in the comments. I'm in the Bay Area. Let me know where everyone is joining from. I know I have a lot of people who are on the East Coast. So if you're joining me from the East Coast, show me some love. Let me know how you guys are living. Now, if this is your first time joining this show, which I'm super happy you're here, first of all, thank you. But if this is your first time joining the show, this is a show that celebrates Black women and women of color founders who are innovators, disruptors, and yes, you can probably imagine very ambitious, and we love that. Now, joining me today on the show is the founder of PowerUp, Jasmine Williams. She helped women in tech get promoted and own their career using neuroscience backed strategies. Yes, very interesting. Now, Jasmine scaled and bootstrapped PowerUp to become a successful coaching business by creating sustainable business models that supports ambitious women. Now, if you want to accelerate your career growth in tech and learn how to advocate for the promotion without fear, and we all love a good promotion, then keep watching this show because Jasmine Williams, the Jasmine Williams, is here to tell us how. Now, I want you guys to show her so much love that she doesn't even want to leave. I want you to light up the screen. I want you all to act like, you know what? It's Oscars this Sunday. She gonna win an Oscar. I need y'all to give her some love. Welcome, Jasmine Williams.
Yes, I was like the intro.
What's up? How are you?
I am good. I'm super excited to be here. It's such an honor. I've been watching your show and seeing all the guests that are coming on here, and I just feel like I'm in really great company.
Well, I thank you for being here, and you are part of a really great company. You are a phenomenal woman who is always changing the game. I love your posts. If you're not following her on LinkedIn already, you need to because her posts are always fire. And the work that you're doing really is helping a lot of women in corporate, to take their careers to a next level. And we love that. First of all and
Yeah.
foremost. So let's get into it. Why don't you tell us in your own words what you do and with PowerUp? Like how does it work?
Yeah, so PowerUp provides coaching services for ambitious women in tech to help them build authority and to help them secure the bag, secure the
Okay.
promotion. That's the goal.
Right.
And so I parachuted into tech about 12 plus years ago. I had a super successful career. I grew pretty rapidly. And there
Okay.
were three things that I learned quickly that I
Right.
needed to do in order to be successful. The first thing was to be thinking strategically. Think like the CEO, think like the executives in your organization. The second thing is to be visible. I know there's a lot of school of
Mhm.
thoughts around this. Some people believe that hard work will speak for itself. Sometimes it does, but majority of the time it doesn't. And so it's really about having a standout presence
Yeah.
so that people notice you and people gravitate to wanting to work with you. And then the third thing is to build authority. I know that's a loaded
Mhm.
term, but
Mhm.
simply what that means is building relationships across the different lines of businesses, finding the problems that you can solve together, and then doing what you say you're going to do.
Ooh,
And so
okay.
it's the women that are in the top 2% that are doing these things and are the ones who are consistently growing their careers.
Okay. So, what it sounds like to me is that there is definitely a science to how you make it to the top within corporate, especially in tech, because we
Mhm.
know tech is a little bit of a different animal. And I love that, you bring in the neuroscience aspect of it. Tell me how
Mhm.
that works, because when you hear neuroscience, I immediately think like you're in the lab, you're making it happen, the brain, everything. So tell me how your program differs by bringing that aspect in.
Yeah, so what I realized is that women are struggling both with external barriers and internal barriers.
Yeah.
And so if we were going to do the work, we needed to be able to address both. The external barriers are like the systemic issues that women are facing, and the internal barriers are the stories that we're telling ourselves as a result of these, societal expectation norms, etc., that has us believing that, there's something that we need to fix about us. And so we
Mm,
start doubting ourselves and we
yeah.
start having anxiety and all of these different things. And so I really wanted to set my coaching business apart by providing services that address those internal barriers.
Right. Well, the other thing I find interesting too, and you even said that you worked in corporate, in tech before.
Yeah.
Why did you make the pivot from corporate to being an entrepreneur? What were you seeing on your end, and what was different for you that made you want to get on this path to becoming a business owner?
Yeah. So I think it was 2023 when
Okay.
I decided to take a sabbatical. And I took that sabbatical and it left me with a lot of time to do a lot of thinking.
Okay.
And one of the questions that I asked myself literally changed the trajectory of my career. And
Yes.
that question was, am I being called to serve in a different way right now? And
Mm,
ultimately, the answer was yes. And
okay.
so I knew I wanted to do work that was adjacent to tech because I love tech. Tech has always
Yeah.
loved me back.
Yeah.
And so I knew I wanted to help women. And I wanted to help women get promotions because I saw a lot of women weren't getting promotions. And it wasn't because they lacked skill or competency, it's because of self doubt, visibility, and also systemic issues. And so I knew I needed to help them tackle all three of those
Mm,
things.
yeah.
And then the Women's in Workplace report dropped in 2023. It was a
Okay.
super epic report because it really talked about kind of where we were mid and kind of post. We started to move towards post pandemic, I think, around this time.
Right.
And it talked about how women were redefining ambition. It
Mm,
talked about, yeah, how women were really looking to change the way that they were approaching their careers. And so for me, that really solidified that this was the move and that was the direction that I ultimately wanted to go.
yeah.
Um, and so it was hard because I had spent so much of my time in tech. To pivot to something new
Mhm.
was really scary, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
then I like sat with this quote that literally eased my stress. And it says, "Your purpose isn't the thing that you do; it's the it's the thing that happens in other people when you do the thing that you do." And
Mm.
I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that, so many women can relate to, being in that space in their lives. We know that, tech is changing. We know that a lot of people are being laid off. And a lot of people are wondering, like, what's next? What's the move? What's my purpose? And I love what you said. Am I being called to serve, you know, um, in a different way right now? And I think that is such a powerful question that we all can be asking ourselves, so thank you for sharing that, because especially when you're starting a business, you don't know what you don't know. So I think that that is completely, such a good way to kind of frame it and a good way to kind of start to kick off this next phase of your life. Now, when you started to sort of build Power Up, you
mm,
know, what was the biggest challenge for you to build Power Up?
ooh, I like this question." The biggest challenge, I think, just switching from the corporate mindset to an entrepreneurial mindset. There was so many things I had to learn.
Mm,
Trust me, there was a lot of like crossover things that I was doing that certainly put me in a position to be a great entrepreneur, but there was so much that I needed to learn. And I think figuring out LinkedIn,
yeah.
like how to write content for LinkedIn, how to structure content for LinkedIn, how to find your friends on LinkedIn was like the struggle. And surprisingly, right, of all the things I think that we have to figure out as entrepreneurs, like LinkedIn was a big struggle.
Yeah, it's a big one that actually a lot of people don't give enough credit to, but it's super important in building your business, as you know. And yeah, it's hard to sort of figure that out, you know. And what I think is really awesome about what you've created a framework as well
Mhm.
to help, you know, women in corporate, women in tech to basically take their careers to that next level. Can you tell us a little bit about this 12-week program you call PowerUp, how you came up with it and how it works?
Yeah, so my program is actually called Career Mastery.
Mhm.
And so I have the 12-week program, Career Mastery, but then I also have the 1 hour option for women who want to come in and just strategize and leave with some actionable steps. And I call that Power Hour. So I feel like I got the branding.
Right.
I
I
nailed
love
the
it.
branding there.
Love it.
But for the 12-week program, what we focus on is clarity on what it is that they want and then how to get after it. We focus on building their confidence to own their work and to ask for what they deserve. And then we focus on visibility that leads to recognition and promotion. So again, it's taking, getting super clear on what it is that we want and really kind of feeds our soul. And
Mhm.
then doing that mindset work to remove those blockers. And then we're diving in and it's like brass tacks. We're getting into the strategy and really starting to execute.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, 12 weeks is, I love that it's 12 weeks because that's a long time to really sort of, you know, you get to know them, they get to know you. There's actual learning taking place. It's not like, you know, too fast, you know, but
Yeah.
it is a slow process. When you're in this process, this 12-week program with your clients, what are some of the things that they're sharing with you and the struggles that they're seeing, and how do you sort of navigate? Because everybody's not the same,
Yeah.
right? So how do you sort of navigate helping them?
I mean, a lot of the things that I've talked about in terms of what we go over or what I'm seeing the issues continuing to be, it's like on repeat. I think that people are really struggling to figure out who are the people in the organization that they should be having conversations with. We say the right people. Well, who are the right
Right.
people? And what do those conversations even sound like? Right. And so we talk about that. We talk about how there doesn't feel like there are really any opportunities. How do we create opportunities for ourselves? We talk about how they struggle with the persistent self-doubt, where maybe the word or term that they're using is imposter syndrome. But how do
Mhm.
we peel back the layers and get deeper into what is going on underneath and start to unwind that?
Right.
We talk about really difficult conversations that they're needing to have and how scary that feels. So, for example, I had a client that was feeling pretty anxious about a conversation she was going to have with a colleague.
Okay.
And she almost backed out of this conversation because her anxiety was so heightened. And so I took a couple of my brain-based strategies that I felt was the right strategies to apply for her situation. And essentially, she was able to change her physiological reaction to this particular scenario super quickly, like in an instant, because of the strategies that we applied, and ground herself in the moment. And so that's become a part of her daily practice.
Wow.
And it's making it so much easier for her to show up in a way that feels calm and feels present.
Wow. So you're changing people's lives. I love that. That's basically what you're saying. You're changing people's lives, you know? I love that, you know,
One
and
strategy at a time.
one strategy at a time, you know, 12 weeks. So if you have any questions, if anyone who is watching us right now, if you have any questions for Jasmine, feel free to drop them, and we'll definitely ask, you know, because I think that, you know, one thing we know, as someone who's worked in corporate and in tech, is that every organization is different, right?
Yeah.
So you can't apply what you did in one organization to another. You know, you kind of have to make those pivots, you know, that kind
Mhm.
of thing. But it sounds like the tools that you're giving your clients is something that they can carry throughout their career. Am I
Yeah,
right?
it's customized to them. So there's no one size fit all type of approach that I take, and
Right.
that's what why we have the 12 weeks is because I really want to get to know them, understand, their particular blockers and create strategies specifically for them
Mhm.
that they can take with them for a lifetime. And that to me is also the other differentiator. I feel like there are people want a lot of quick fixes,
Mhm.
just give me the strategy and then
Right.
I can just apply the strategy. But when you're dealing with self-doubt, anxiety, and all of these different things, strategies don't remove those types of feelings,
Right.
emotions, right? And so you have to really get to the root of it. And so
Mhm.
the things that I'm helping my clients kind of resource on their own are just things that they can continue to do on their own so that they don't become dependent on me.
Right.
They start to learn how to take action and self lead.
That is fantastic. I love that. So you're kind of like a therapist in a lot of ways. You give them the tools and then you're like, go be great, you know? So I love that, the corporate therapist, power up.
I feel
Uh,
like somebody called me that before. I'm like, okay, I can see that.
I mean, yeah, when you talk about getting to the root cause of a
Yeah.
problem, that's what it is, you know? One of the things that, I think that, you know, I've struggled with, and I'm sure many others, especially if they're working in corporate, is the self-promotion piece, which is what you talk about,
Mhm.
and why do you think that discomfort is a problem? Why do you think that, especially for women, that it keeps happening where you're doubting yourself and you're just like, "Oh my god, I don't know if I can do it," you know?
Yeah. So I think that self doubt is a challenge for women because they fear being perceived as braggy or arrogant.
Mm. Or too
Um,
ambitious?
or too ambitious. And so, societal norms teach women to be humble and quiet, but in the workplace, the rules change. And so,
Yeah.
when you have that kind of shift from, oh, I'm supposed to be what I call the good girl, it's a good girl phenomenon, right?
Mhm.
To now I need to be vociferous and I need to be talking about my work with people across the organization, that feels very uncomfortable. The
Yeah.
second reason is that women are judged more harshly than men,
Yes.
surprise, for promoting our work in the workplace.
Yep.
But here's the thing, we're judged more harshly by other women.
Mm. Which is unfortunate.
It
That
it really is. But my hypothesis is because most of us, not all of us, have had this conditioning that when we see someone who is stepping out and doing something different than what the pack is doing, we feel threatened by that.
mm,
And
mm.
so I think that, that is what is manifesting in these situations. So, um, I've gotten so many women who've reached out to me in my DMs, on my posts, my clients, like, yeah, it's real. We have other women who are the ones who are actually making us feel uncomfortable for promoting our work in the workplace. And I
Yeah.
always remind them at the end of the day, self promotion isn't about ego, it's about making your work and your impact visible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now I have a couple questions in there. How can we, if you're a woman right now who's dealing with, let's say you're doing all the things at work, you are self-promoting, but there is like a couple women and maybe a couple men who are trying to stop that. They're trying to block your shine. How do
Mm.
you deal with that?
Yeah, so that's like a really good question, and I
Ah,
love block your
yes,
shine.
yes, like, oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
so here's the thing, I think that anytime we're doing something new, we're gonna feel some discomfort,
yeah,
and so there are ways to make self-promotion more comfortable. The first thing that I tell my clients is that we need to get really clear on the definition of self-promotion because I think that self-absorption and self-promotion are conflated.
right.
Self-promotion is me energy. Me,
Mm,
me, 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 me.
right.
And self-promotion energy is well, self-promotion is really about gosh, I lost my whole moment right there. So,
Okay.
me a second. But
That's okay.
self-promotion is more about serving energy. So when we talk about serving energy, serving the business, serving our customers, serving our purpose.
Mhm.
So when you think about it that way, you understand what self-promotion is, it
Right,
literally can help to shift your overall feelings towards self-promotion.
right.
The second thing is just take self-promotion out of your vocabulary. Some people
Yeah,
find it cringe. They're like, self-promotion, like it sounds pretentious.
right.
But if it does, then just simply saying making my work more visible, literally think of your work being in a dark room and you're moving it to a room with windows and light
Yeah,
coming in. Um,
yes.
and so just changing the way we talk about it also changes the way that we feel about it.
Ah, yes. So we have to change the conversations. And I think a lot of times I always say, you can't make real change unless you start with yourself, you
Yeah.
know. So, so
Yeah,
start
you
with
can't
yourself,
go preaching to the choir.
right? Start with yourself, which is like the hardest part. We have a question from Alana Brown. Alana says, what is your perspective about this approach for solopreneurs? Ah, good one.
Ooh, that's a
Mm,
really good one. I feel like
mm,
it still sticks, like you're not promoting your work, your impact within an organization that is not your organization or your company, right? Now it's your business. And so the same rules still apply. You're still focused on your serving energy. You got into the business because you want to help people in some kind of way. And they need to know what you do. They need to know how you serve. They need to know how your service is
right.
helping to add value to other people's lives. So if you take a lot of what I've said on today's call, then you can take it and still apply it to entrepreneurship as well.
That is great info to know. Because I think when you're starting your new business, you're starting a new business as a solopreneur or entrepreneur, that fear is there. You're like, am I doing too much? Am I overselling? Am I asking for too much? But
Yeah.
it's such a scary time. But thank you for your question, Alana. I think,
Yeah. Thank you.
yeah, great question. Thank you. If you have any more questions, anyone for Jasmine, drop it here. We're here to support you. Jasmine is dropping her gems, oh, and Lana even says, I love serving energy phrase.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you for that. And make sure you are following Jasmine if you're not already. She has amazing LinkedIn posts that is always dropping knowledge and giving you more information of how to navigate corporate and how to show up authentically. And basically, like she said, how to get the bag. Now also too, people say get the bag. I'm like, what kind of bag are we trying to get?
What bag do you want?
Any type of bag? Okay, great. Because I'm always like, "What kind of bag?" Because I'm like, there's so many and the trends change all the time. So I
Yeah.
just want to say that. But but the other aspect of, working in corporate, when you talk about, how to make your work visible, what does that look like in practice when you talk about making your
Yeah.
work visible? Because for me, it means that, maybe I'm having more presentations, with
Mhm.
the team or something like that. But is that what it is, or how is it different?
Kinda. So it's really about sharing, strategically sharing your work, your impact with the right decision makers. I know we're putting right in open and close parentheses, but it is really about sharing your work with the right decision makers, and it's definitely not about broadcasting it to everyone all the time,
Okay.
everywhere. Like nobody wants that. Um,
Nobody wants that.
no, nobody wants that. So you need to be strategic about how you approach sharing your work. And so the way that you can put this into practice is think about skip level meetings. I think a lot of people don't even perform skip level meetings, like proactively going out and setting meetings on the calendar with your boss's boss, your boss's boss's boss, right? And framing it as an opportunity to build a relationship, to get to know that individual, because at the end of the day, we're all humans.
Yeah.
It's also about one on one conversations with your boss, right? What are you talking about when you're going into your one-on-one meeting, right?
Yeah,
Often we're talking about all of these tasks and projects that we're working on, but we're really not positioning our work in the way that we need to be positioning it.
right.
And then all hands meetings, cross-functional meetings are all great opportunities to get your work in front of, a broader but more strategic way of getting it in front of the right audience.
Yeah. Super helpful tips. I'm going to throw you a curveball though, because so I've worked in corporate, and in my last role, I didn't have a problem with self promotion, but my manager did.
Mm,
Um, you know,
yeah.
uh, so what do you do when you are trying to do all the things that you've outlined, to secure the bag, make sure that you get to that next level, and there are potentially one or two people within the organization who are stopping that forward motion?
Yeah, I listen, I've been there too.
Yeah,
And sometimes, you get a bad apple and you get a boss who doesn't really want to see you shine, like you said earlier,
yeah,
and they're not positioning you for growth. I think that's something that you need to just keep in your back pocket and kind of understand like how they are operating.
right,
But this is why it's so important to build relationships across the business. If
right,
you are solely relying on just the conversations you're having with your manager,
yeah,
then that can keep you stuck.
yeah,
So if you are going out and building relationships with other people across the business, then those people are going to become your advocates. They're going to seek you out. And especially when you're building relationships with people who are operating at a higher frequency, a higher level,
right,
there's nothing that anyone can really do to stop that. So I'm always recommending that you build out your network
yeah,
within your company
yeah,
so that you have more people who are advocating for you. And especially when you're not in those rooms and your boss isn't speaking for you, well, guess
right.
what? You have about 5 to 10 other people that will.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. You got to build that network, super important. I think the other thing that we all know too is, and I kind of mentioned that earlier, is that, a lot of layoffs are happening right now. A lot of
Mhm.
people are losing, their positions and everything like that. And also too, we don't, you don't know, right? When it's your time, at these
Yeah.
companies. What can, for those people who may be laid off, or we know that's something that it's a daily thing now we have to think about. What is a tip that you can give to, people that are in corporate right now, in tech, who are like sitting like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen. How can what should they be doing right now to position themselves for the next thing, the next role, whatever that may be?
Yeah, literally everything we're talking about.
Yeah.
You should be
Right.
standing out in the best way possible,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not talking about kissing up, right?
Right.
Because that's a thing.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about building a presence that helps you stand out, that makes it a no-brainer for a business to say, we have to keep this individual around. And even if that's not the case, even if, because there are so many brilliant women in tech,
Yes.
so many brilliant women in tech, and we can all be doing all the things, but sometimes it just happens the way that it happens, and it absolutely doesn't mean anything about you. But
Right.
if you are promoting your work and your impact inside the organization, please be doing it outside the organization. If you're building relationships inside the organization, be also building relationships outside of the organization. So
Yes.
everything that we're talking about, apply it externally. And that is really what's going to help set you apart. Even in today's like unruly market, be doing what the 2% is doing, right?
Mm.
And that's going to set you apart already.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right, you all. Do what the 2% is doing,
Do it.
do it, and do it even when you don't feel like it, because there's a bunch of networking things that are always going on, and you're like, "I don't feel like going," like, again, no,
Yeah.
go, network, meet people, let people know how great you are. Now, Jasmine, I have a question for you, and
Mm,
and I
what is
ask and I ask this to a lot of people, is do you consider yourself ambitious?
it? Ooh, okay. So the traditional definition of success is money, fame, and title. And I stopped subscribing to that a few years back.
Okay.
And I created my own definition of success.
Mm,
And so my metrics look like, do I have time for my friends and family and for myself?
okay.
Okay, great. Do I am I taking actions in alignment with my values?
Mm,
Am I doing work that feels purposeful? Right? These are the things that I am measuring my success on. So by
mhm.
my definition of success, I'm beyond ambitious.
Okay. Mic
Yeah.
drop. All right, people, show's over. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Such a great perspective, that you've turned it around and made it about, how you've redefined success for yourself and your family and friends. I think that's beautiful.
I
So
had
thank
to.
you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to. I think that I was caught in the hamster wheel,
Mhm.
and chasing things that
Yep.
really didn't fulfill me, thinking that there was something at the other end. I just needed to climb one more rung to get it, but the reality is that that's not it.
No.
What you're really looking for is within yourself, and you just need to find it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and throw Dr. Jasmine Williams in front of it. Just put the doctor in
Or
front.
just give it to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, we'll just give you the doctor, you're already an Oscar winner, so that's great.
Oh my
I
god.
love it. So, Jasmine, as we wrap up here, tell us where we can find you and how we can work with you. What should I be doing?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. It's dash Jasmine. I really wanted just Jasmine, but I couldn't get it. So dash
Mm,
Jasmine.
okay.
You can find me on LinkedIn and connect with me there.
Okay.
And on my LinkedIn page, there are options to set up a call if you want to do a discovery call and dive a little bit deeper into your specific scenario and
Mhm.
figure out how it is that maybe, we can work together or how I can support you. And then, of course, I'm posting throughout the week. You can also hit me up in the DMs, but LinkedIn is where you find me.
I love it. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join me today on Too Ambitious and to share, all these gems about how we need to self promote and take care of ourselves while we're doing it, and basically how to be great. You know,
Yes.
so thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of
This is
course, of
good.
course. And thank you everyone for watching the show today and for joining in the chat. We had some really great people in the chat sharing feedback. So I'm sure your inbox is going to be exploding, Jasmine. So just be ready.
I'm
Um,
ready. I'm
yeah,
ready.
I love it. I love it. Follow Dr. Jasmine Williams on LinkedIn, Oscar winner, as well on LinkedIn. And if you'd love to be a guest on this show, feel free to message me on LinkedIn because I love talking to phenomenal women like yourselves. So until next time, which is basically next week, I will see you for another episode of Too Ambitious. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you.